Hey everyone,
Anyway,
welcome to the Hume Scope podcast, Roles and Lols. For those of you who don't know Hume Scope, we're a recruitment training business based in Australia, and to date we have trained thousands of recruiters across Oz, New Zealand, and a bit of Europe.
this is going to be a 10-minute quick tips and tricks with hopefully some laughs along the way for agency recruiters.
Yeah, hopefully you enjoy, and if you ever have any topics you'd like us to cover in the poddy, please shout out. Otherwise, you'll see us every week on a Friday for 10-minute episodes. Hopefully you enjoy.
See ya.
Hello,
right.
team.
Hello.
Welcome back to the poddy.
The potty, the new little potty studio, our office.
Yeah.
So nice.
New
to
little
be here.
mic, still so official.
Hopefully that's working this time. I feel like the audio last week was a bit echoey.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Well,
Always
welcome, team. We wanted to do an episode on the importance of value adds. Like we talk about value adds quite a lot, but something came up in our conference.
Yeah. And I think, in the conference, I think overall what we were kind of saying is the value isn't in the document or the industry report or the salary guide. For us, the value is in how we release it and how we monitor it, how we track it. And that is the return that we get from putting that into our industry. It's not about just saying, oh, we've got a salary guide and it's on our website.
Yeah.
And that's frequently what we do see happening. And people think, what's the point, really? What are we getting out of it?
Well, it was interesting because we had guys, for those of you that weren't at our conference, for those of you that missed out, basically, there was 100 people in attendance, right? And we started off our session, which was around business development. We asked everyone to stand up and we asked people to remain standing if they did some form of value add. So a salary guide, a quarterly newsletter, some form of webinar, whatever it might be for their networks. Most people stayed standing. Then
95%, I would say stood up, or stayed standing.
Then we asked people to stay standing if they could attribute some form of ROI to that value add. About 50% of them sat down. So there's about 40 odd people left standing. Then we asked, did you have a robust strategy in place to roll out your value add that had specific touch points that them and their teams needed to hit? And did they measure if those were hit in the pre-release and post-release? And literally about 5 people stayed standing. So what that told us was most of us are doing some form of value adds for our networks, but we're not putting in a robust strategy in place. And what Lucy said earlier, the value actually isn't in the value add. The value is in the strategy of the value add release.
Yeah.
Which sounds a little bit convoluted.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the other points we made that I can see so clearly in our industry, but different to how we do things at Hume Scope when it comes to our BD strategy, is we see agencies have these kind of KPIs around do the calls, get in the meetings, post on social media, but it's none of that is attached to something like a value add. They run kind of separately. And so it's like, how can we bring those together to make it mean something? When we pick up the phone, there's meaning and intention behind it. And how are we tracking that kind of life cycle or that buying behavior of our candidates, passive candidates, of our clients? And actually, embed the value add into that process.
Into that strategy. Because I think most of us that are listening, if our conference sort of test audience of 100 is anything to go by, we know most of you that are listening to this, your business or you will do some form of value add. And as an example, most people do a salary guide, right? And what we see as part of the strategy is usually fairly basic, which is let's collect the data, or not even collect the data. We'll put it together a report on salaries. We'll send it out via email, and then hopefully people will get back to us and be interested in chatting to us about the guide and maybe give us some jobs. That's a very basic and common strategy. However, a good strategy, and as an example, we've got around an 8-step process. And as an example, we did data collection for our guide last year. It's still not been released, but we've had such good touch points in the lead up to releasing this guide that for us, it's equated to over $200,000 of revenue, and the guide still isn't released. And as an example, We've got 300 or so people coming to a webinar to talk about early release data. So that's 300 people that will get to see us for an hour. In the lead up to that webinar, we've had over 60 one-on-one client meetings where we've called people and said, look, we're releasing the guide in a few months. We'd love to come out and just talk you through the data early release. But there's so many little touch points that we forget to do as part of this value add, which then leads a lot of people to go, yeah, we've done value adds, they don't really work. And I'm like, it's not the value add that doesn't work, it's your strategy wasn't robust enough and you didn't track it, because there should be so many different touch points in the lead up to releasing your value add. There's so many different opportunities for your team to pick up the phone and engage with people one-on-one. And we should, as business leaders, be giving our teams every single reason to pick up the phone rather than just go and do more calls, because that doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. So we need to give reasons. But also, as the leader, it is your responsibility, in our opinion, to provide the strategy. You cannot expect your team of consultants or even team leaders, in all honesty, to come together with a solid BD strategy. It's not going to happen. And if it does, I would genuinely argue, if you've got someone in your team that can put together a really robust strategy, track it, get their team engaged, that person will likely leave to start their own business in the next few years, because if they've got the ability to do that level of strategy, they're not going to stay with you very long. And so if we've got teams and we're wanting them to execute, we need to be providing direction, structure, and what we ultimately call the runway lights. Otherwise, if there's no runway lights, those planes are landing everywhere and you can't manage it. So it is our responsibility as leaders, in our opinion, to provide that.
And we see it all the time. We saw it back in our day when we were like junior consultants, back in our day, but doing the whole, just do more calls, get on the phones, like just do the activity, but it's not attached to anything. Whereas if you're giving, the runway of kind of intention, purpose, strategy, it's building blocks. The psyche of a consultant going into their work and knowing what they're attached to and the work that they're doing, what it means, there's so much more value in terms of like general satisfaction in your roles. And to your point as well around releasing the salary guide, like we haven't, in the 8-step process that we have, we're at like step 5, like we haven't even released that yet. And in the meantime, not only have you as our leader, you've provided this runway and this strategy, like the knowledge that Johnny and myself have from being involved in this process, having the meetings, like all these like industry things that empower us into our calls. Like it's the same for consultants in your team, like guarantee agencies that have salary guides or industry reports that sit on your website somewhere, guarantee 80% of the people on your team have never opened the document themselves. They're
not utilising it as a hook to engage. Small little plug. We very rarely plug our courses on our poddy, but honestly, it's very relevant. We've got our upcoming 6-week BD course, and this is what we essentially go through. And it's so hard for us to actually describe our BD course because it's not traditional, right? Our whole course is geared around, 1, how do you create the guide or a value add? And then how do you follow a robust strategy to get max ROI from the effort that you're putting in and roll it out whilst also incorporating traditional methods like calls and client meetings. So we go through all of that, but the first half of the course is very much about a modern way to engage with a wider audience. And then the other half is how do you convert that audience? So if anyone's interested, please feel free to reach out to us, details on the website, but we've got 2 intakes happening in the next few months. And we've run that course, we've had over 800 people through that course, so it's tried and tested. For anyone that actually wants to develop their BD muscle, definitely worthwhile. So shout out if you want more info, but otherwise, I think that's it from us.
That's it from today. Yeah. I mean, look, I would just say as well, I did the BD course 3.5, 4 years ago. It's how we run things at Hume Scope. It's definitely the strategy that I felt far more connected to in terms of BD. And I love BD. Like it's my favorite part of the role. And now having it every single day is intention based and purpose driven. So if that's what you need in your teams or you as a consultant needs from even a personal experience, it was the best thing you could have done.
Oh, high praise indeed.
He pays me.
All righty, team. Hopefully that was helpful. Shout out if you've got any questions. But yeah, we'll see you next week.
See ya.